Okay, let's go on to the Raiders, who came in second. Kind of surprising that the Raiders came in second in the AFC West this year.
I mean, they had such a great late season surge, right? Because they were sort of out of the playoffs, people didn't pay attention to this, but over their last 6 games, their point differential was, I think, it was like plus 63.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you beat someone 63-21.
No, sure, but like, what did they do? They lost to the Vikings by a couple points. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Chiefs. Close loss to the Colts. They beat the Broncos.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying those were the best teams in the NFL, but like the Chiefs, Colts, Broncos, Vikings, those were all solid.
I mean, they
teams.
ended with 3 division wins. 3 division wins right there. So go from 6-11 to 8-9. The big story for them is Josh McDaniels was fired 8 games into the season. Shocker that that came to an end. And Antonio Pierce wound up taking over as interim head coach. Jimmy G was benched. Aiden O'Connell in. The defense surged late in the season. I mean, some of these numbers here on the defensive side of the ball, from week 9 through the end of the year, the Raiders led the NFL in fewest points per game allowed, most defensive touchdowns, fewest penalties, and the 3rd most sacks. So, they rallied around this guy. Max Crosby said he'd request a trade if Antonio Pierce wasn't promoted to head coach. And to some degree, I do think Mark Davis listened to his players and wound up promoting Pierce for that reason. We'll see if it comes back to bite him. The guy had no head coaching experience before, but he was a guy that everyone was able to rally around. And now they bring in Tom Telesco, who you said has the greatest agent in the history of sports, potentially, outside of maybe Kirk Cousins, who somehow lands another GM job. And here you have a Raiders offseason that's going to be highly focused around what to do at quarterback. So with Jimmy G, he's going to be gone. He's suspended 2 games. Cost himself $12 million, as you noted.
Yeah, the Raiders, I haven't seen many people say this. The Raiders got a nice little gift with this Jimmy G PED suspension because he had a $12 million salary guarantee this year. And now because of the PEDs, that just disappears. So the Raiders just freed up $12 million in cap space overnight.
Yeah, not a bad situation. So with them picking at 13th in the draft right now, if you were Las Vegas, you can't really roll out with O'Connell next year, or at least just him. So are you looking to make a move in the draft, or would you focus your attention on a free agent?
The Raiders have 2 possibilities this offseason. And really, I think the player it comes down to and what he wants to do is Davante Adams. There's 2 ways I can see this offseason going. One is, Garrett Wilson changed his number from 17 to 5. They are clearly courting Davante Adams to go reunite with Aaron Rodgers in New York. The Jets are desperate enough to make a trade. But I don't think that's what this team is going to do, because this team is ready to compete, right? You've got Adams, obviously, but you have Max Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the league. You've got some decent weapons in Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, right? You could possibly bring back Josh Jacobs.
Michael Mayer was good.
Yeah, he was all right. If I'm the Raiders, my number 1 free agent target this year, and the way that I see their offseason being centered around, is actually Kirk Cousins. This hasn't gotten a ton of traction, but the Raiders have a decent offensive line. They could have a strong offense. And look, this team is so tired of mediocrity, and I really doubt that Antonio Pierce wants to tear it all down and rebuild.
Well, Davante was recruiting him. Davante was going after him.
Yeah, I mean, getting Kirk Cousins to the Raiders gives you a functional offense, arguably a very good offense. There's a lot that could happen. And there are a few stars on defense that you hope continue to develop.
Can they afford Kirk?
Sure they can. With Jimmy G gone now, his cap number disappears. They've got like $60 million in cap space. Just sign Kirk to one of those $40 million guaranteed deals that he loves. Am I saying that they're guaranteed to get him? No, there are certainly some roadblocks. Yeah. But the Raiders have they can sell it.
Well,
right?
This is the first time really that the team has had a solid defense going into, or at least you're hoping to have a solid defense going into the season in a long time. This was the 5th time since the NFL expanded to 32 teams in 2002 that the Raiders ended in the top half of defenses in the league. Which is kind of crazy to think about how often we turn on the Raiders and see them just getting absolutely scorched. Just the past couple of years, they've been horrendous on the defensive side of the ball. This year, they have a little success. So if they're able to, continue Tyree Wilson, if he's able to improve a little bit on the edge, they are able to go out and get a couple guys in free agency. With that offense, I don't think Josh Jacobs will be back. It's just, you're not going to pay him that money. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry this season. It wasn't the same guy. that you saw a year ago. And Zamir White came in and played fine in fill-in roles. But I do think you get another running back in the draft. You have White. The receiving core is there. Yeah, Kirk Cousins would be awesome to come in. And you need a quarterback in that conference to compete for a playoff spot. So I like it. I like it, Ziggy. Who's your must keep?
So assuming that this is how things go for the Raiders, again, who they need to keep depends on how the offseason goes for them, right? But if I'm the Raiders, like my big concern, again, we're assuming they bring in Kirk Cousins, right?
Well, if you bring in, I mean, that's a huge assumption.
But here's
finish your thought. Go ahead.
If the Raiders aren't able to bring in Kirk Cousins and have to let Aiden O'Connell roll out or draft a rookie quarterback, there aren't any relevant free agents, right? Because the team's just rebuilding. Everything that's going to be relevant turns around the draft. Assuming they want to compete next year, though, Andre James is the player they've got to bring back. He had a great year last year. He had his best year as a pass protector and as a run blocker. He's only 27. Center is one of those positions that I think very often gets ignored in the NFL because on the outside, it seems like it's just another interior offensive line position. But in these offensive systems that are starting to take over the league, the center is the one responsible for identifying blitz packages. The center is the one responsible for figuring out who needs to block where and exactly how things are going to be handled because the quarterback has to orchestrate a whole offense around them now, right? With all the motion and pre-snap movements. So getting, center's an important position. Rodney Hudson, obviously, he was good for the Raiders, but they traded him away. I would not be comfortable starting a rookie center on the Raiders this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, rookie center, never ideal. I'm trying to think about this quarterback situation because I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to go to the Raiders, even though it is enticing. It's not the worst location.
The only other real free agent of note is Josh Jacobs, right? Here's a player that's a pseudo free agent that I think they need to keep, Davante Adams.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they get rid of Davante, that now we're talking about you could, if the Raiders go and make a move for a rookie, that's not the worst case scenario here. They just need someone that they like. I highly doubt they trade up to 3, being at 13 right now, because that seems to be the most likely possibility of going to get one of those top guys. But if they're in love with Penix or Bo Nix or McCarthy, I can see one of those guys being drafted.
Yeah, but that means they're unlikely to have much success next year. That's just how it is.
Do you think that team's right? I guess it is. If the defense shows up again, that team with a good quarterback can compete, yeah.
Again, do they win a Super Bowl? Not necessarily, but keep in mind what the standards are for the Raiders, right? We're not talking about the Green Bay Packers here.
Sure, yeah.
Making the playoffs and winning a playoff game would be a pretty good year for them.
But that's why I'm saying, do you really want to go after Kirk Cousins for maybe 2 years or so of Kirk when the roster around him, you're probably not going to win right now? Why not try and get your young guy so that you can build up and have a window in 2 years?
At a certain point, the Raiders need to win games, right? They've been in Las Vegas for a while and haven't done anything. They have a lot of players who are ready to win now.
All right.
Right? Davante Adams is ready to win now.
Crosby's ready to win now. No, so I think it's a fair point.
It's super easy to say, let's just draft the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the draft and hope they're good. But when you have an opportunity with a team that's hot, with a lot of veterans that want to play, with a coach they believe in, you just don't get a lot of opportunities like that. And letting it pass, resetting the window, and again, hoping that the 5th best quarterback in the draft is good. I don't know.
And look, if they do, let's say they do bring in Kirk and have a couple good years, then you're probably in a good spot to blow it up when Adams is on his way out. Crosby's probably declining a little more.
Yeah, Kirk doesn't sign the deals that cripple teams, right? He signs 2-year big money guaranteed deals.
He's amazing at it.